think Bruce Springsteen is one of the greatest rock musicians of all time. And I think a lot of times in his songs there is an echo of the gospel in there, even just a little bit. Back in 1984, he had a monster hit with Dancing in the Dark. How many of you remember that song, Dancing in the Dark? Yeah. It's a toe-tapping, fist-pumping rock anthem that I think tells it like it is. There are times when life can seem to be an endless cycle of getting up and going about the business of the everyday, and coming home, going to bed, and then having to get up and do it all over again. You know, repeat the cycle. Bruce talks about in this song, he talks about, sometimes he ain't nothing but tired. He's just tired and bored with himself. And then he goes on to say, hey, I could use a little help. And when I hear, tired and bored, I've been there, I've been tired and bored with myself. And there are times I go, hey, I could use a little help. But then he goes on to say, man, I ain't getting nowhere. I'm just living, in a place like this. And I know there's something happening somewhere. I just know that there is. And then it goes into the iconic chorus about just dancing in the dark. How he can't start a fire without a spark. And when he begins to despair that things in the world in his world are not likely to change, how even if he's just dancing in the dark, it's better to dance than not to dance. It's better to dance in the dark than not dance. He's right, of course. When tough times hit, when the worst happens, it's helpful to trust that there is something happening somewhere, right? And to let our hearts have a little bit of joy and to dance anyway. To move and to trust that things will get better. That as we hear the music in spite of our broken hearts, we can still dance to the song of hope. But of course, it's really hard to dance in the dark, right? When the bottom has fallen out of our world, the last thing we feel like doing is dancing. How do you feel joy in the darkest places of your life? So it's hard to dance in the dark, whether it's literally dancing or the metaphoric kind, the kind where we're happy on the inside. It's hard because we have that empty, forlorn feeling that keeps us from hearing or seeing the rhythms and melody of life. We sort of, when we're in those dark places, we can't see the cosmology, we can't see the arc of the universe, and we can become quite dark, quite sad. But it's much easier to dance in the light. When things are happy and easy, of course it's easy to dance, right? While it was still dark. Did you hear that part in the Bible reading? While it was still dark, Mary went to the tomb of her friend. While it was still dark, she carried her spices and her linen cloth so that she might give her friend one final decent send-off. The last act of love, if you will. You see, Mary Magdalene had been with Jesus all the way up until now. She had seen lives made new, she had seen bodies healed, and eyes opened in understanding. She had heard the complaining of the other disciples and the harsh criticism of the religious rulers and how they absolutely hated her friend Jesus. She had seen and heard the adoration of the crowd when Jesus entered the city such a short time ago. And with a flicker of joy, she remembered how she had joined in their dance of welcome. Yet she had also witnessed him before Pilate. And she had also stood beneath the cross as he was being executed. And her heart now lay in pieces, shattered. It was dark. And as we stand with Mary at the tomb, we can feel the darkness encircle us too. Yet the story reveals something quite wonderful. Wonderful but easy to miss if you're not looking for it. And it is in the line, when it was still dark. When it was still dark, God, the mystery-laden force for life, was busy at work on her behalf. While it was still dark, busy at work on behalf of us all. You see, Jesus had already been raised by the time Mary arrived at the tomb. Somehow, at some time, In the darkness, in the darkest of dark places, Jesus had been raised. The power of the resurrection is not found in dogmatic adherence to certain correct beliefs. The power of the resurrection is not found in believing that a dead body had been brought back to life. The power of the resurrection of Jesus, and the reason we can celebrate and dance in our own darkness, is that even when the world does its worst, the worst is never enough to overcome and defeat the power of life. Life and love will find a way. Life and love will find a way. This is the central story and very meaning of our faith. Life and love will find a way. So to be an Easter people, to hold the truth of the resurrection of Jesus in our hearts, is to trust that with God, something is happening somewhere, that life will find a way. And so we can dance, even if we sometimes think we're dancing in the dark. And the truth is, we are dancing in the dark a lot of the time. God is mystery, and while we moderns want to have some neat mathematical formula or logic-bound statement so that we can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is, Christ is, and resurrection is, there are aspects to our universe that defy such analyses. Some things can only be seen with the heart. Just like Mary didn't recognize Jesus when she first met him, expecting, I think, that a risen Jesus would and should look just like the earthly, physical Jesus. It wasn't until he spoke her name that she knew who was standing beside her. This is also important. It's critical even to understanding the resurrection. You see, the new life that God works in us in the dark looks very different than the one we used to have. And at times our new life is unrecognizable to the old. The truth is, because of the resurrection, because of Easter morning, we are called into a brand new way of being. Just like Mary recognized Jesus when he spoke her name, thus reestablishing their relationship. We too are called to reestablish relationships in our own lives too. To heal what needs to be healed as best we can. To reestablish our connections with God and with one another and with what truly matters, which is always and only life and love. We are to see with our hearts and not only with our eyes. We are to have a little bit of faith in the risen one, who makes all things new. A little bit of faith, that's what we need. That Christ will make all things new, not just for other people, but new for us, no matter what darkness we find ourselves in. To trust that life and love will find a way. The other truth of the resurrection is this: we are called, we who are Easter people are called to dance for our world and to dance for our neighbors. Just like Mary Magdalene became the first apostle, the first witness to the risen Christ, who was sent as a messenger to the other disciples, and ultimately she was sent as a light bearer to the world, we too are to be light bearers. Easter people are meant to be the voice of love and life, of justice and compassion to the world. That's our song. That's our song. Every time we speak words of love and justice to the powerful, even if we're dancing in the dark of all that, life finds a way. Every time we love one another truly through our acts of hospitality, understanding and compassion, life finds a way. Bruce Springsteen sums it up this way. In the final verse of Dancing in the Dark, he starts talking about, you can't start a fire sitting around crying over a broken heart. He says, this gun's for hire, eat higher, even if we're just dancing in the dark. He's willing to do the work of love and life. He goes on to say, you can't start a fire worried about your little world falling apart, but get involved. Even if you're just dancing in the dark, get involved. If we want to start a fire of change in our world, if we want to dance in the light of love and life, if we want to dance the resurrection every day, then we need to be willing to accept and jump into the new life that is always unfolding before us. We need to take the spark that is the resurrection and blow on that flame until it ignites and lights even the darkest of places. And when we do that, then we can all dance in the light. And that's the story of our faith, and that is the power of the resurrection, and that's what Easter is, to blow on that flame of life, that little spark, so it ignites into a flame, and more light is in the world. May it be so in your life and in mine. Amen.